everybody, and welcome to the Pink Table Talk. How are you guys doing today? Hope all is well. We are back with new episodes for us by us ladies, and I'm so glad to be back with you all. How y'all doing? Well, today we've got another great topic. I'm sure you've seen our promotion for it. We are talking about how not to lose yourself in a relationship. And we're not just talking about relationships with men, you know how we always talk about the guys, ladies, but we're talking about this could be with your children, with your parents, with your siblings, co-workers, just everybody. We're not just talking about just with the men, even though that is an important thing. So today, I hope that you all can go ahead on and share, like, let your friends know that we're on and we're talking about how not to lose yourself. And we've got three great guests that I know you are going to enjoy. Two of them have been with us before and one newbie. So please go ahead on, begin sharing and liking this. So I'm going to bring them on in, our guests, and introduce them today. Our first guest, she has been on before. She's got this beautiful blonde hair in the bottom corner. Y'all see her smiling, looking good with her little red lips on. As spicy as ever. You see that lady, she just celebrated 50 years of marriage to her husband. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know anybody that can stick it out that long, except for you. Would you all welcome Miss Letice Reynolds with us again today, y'all? She has got so much wisdom. Thank you for being with us, Miss Letice. How you doing?
I'm doing just great. 50 years in and looking for some more.
Yes, ma'am.
Love it.
Yes, she's been on plenty of times. And the young lady right above her with this long flowing hair looking like she just came off of vacation is what I told her, from Cape Cod or the Bahamas or somewhere. She just looks so refreshed. She is our lady. We love her so much. She is our pastor's wife. And she is the mother of two, just a beautiful spirit, just awesome person. Would you all welcome Miss Andrea Smith back with us again? Hey, Miss Andrea. So glad to have her. And in the bottom with the yellow looking bright as ever, the California girl, the Bay Area herself.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, she got, if you're from Oakland, the Oakland area, the Bay Area, you already know what it is, right? Look how she looks. And we're so glad to have her. She's our staff pastor of women. Awesome person. She does our pastoral counseling, our family counseling at the church for marital. Just an awesome person. So glad to have her on with us. Would you all welcome Pastor Cherise Cross? Hello, Pastor Cross. So glad
Good to
to
see
have
y'all.
all of you guys with us today. I feel like we just got a star-studded girlfriend chat thing going on today, and I'm so glad to have all three of you with me. So let's get on to the topic. The topic is losing ourselves in relationships, and this can be husband, children, and you guys, all three of you are married. All three of you have children, and I don't know how you've done it and how you do it. From the schedules that you have from school with Pastor Cross. I actually watched her go to school, had two kids. The job at the church doing the count. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened, but it did. It was the Lord. And still maintain herself. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and we'll just kind of go around. So, and also, and I want to start with Mrs. Smith, with Andrea, because we talked about this before. Yes, look how she's looking like me. She talked about when she had her first son, and I kind of want you to share how that was, that experience when it was just you and Edie Smith, and y'all were together, and then you get pregnant, have this beautiful son, and what happened after that?
Listen, that boy became my world. I didn't care about husband. I didn't care about friends. I didn't care about anybody else. It was me and my son. It was so
Mhm.
bad until when he turned a year old. My husband he said, we haven't been on a vacation together. Let's just go somewhere by ourselves. We get to the Bahamas. After day one, I am bawling. I am crying. I have to go home. I miss my child. He gets frustrated. The next day, we are back. I am picking up my child because he had never stayed with anybody. I didn't let him stay with anybody. I wouldn't let him eat Cheetos, y'all, because I didn't want the sticky stuff, the orange fingers. I cut up his chicken until he was like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Oh,
So one day, his dad came home and I was feeding him some chicken. You know, I had taken it off the wing and I was feeding him. He came in, he bought a bag of Cheetos home, and he took my son's hand and he just started cramming it in the Cheetos. It was like, this boy will not be around here afraid to eat Cheetos. You are not going to be feeding him. You have got to get out. You have got to get your life. What are you doing? You just sit up under this boy all day. And I just realized, you know, this, I was actually losing myself just being a mother. It was like I changed his clothes 5 times a day because I didn't want slob on his clothes. I mean, I was crazy. Nobody could keep him. You know, if you did, you know, I had to call you every 5 hours. You know, he had the monitor into his room until he was like 5, the baby monitor, so I could see him. It was horrible.
Wow.
So it took me a while, but you know, I had to find myself. I had to start like going back out with my friends. I had to start reading. I even got so bad, until this is so bad to say, but I had stopped even reading the word. I stopped my devotionals, you know, because it was in my way of looking at that camera. And I had to just pray and ask God, you know, this, if something happens to this child, you still have to live. You have a husband that you've neglected. And I had a whole lot that I had to self-evaluate about myself. So I'm just glad that God brought me to a realization that, you know, if you're not good yourself, you can't be good for anybody else.
That's good.
true.
Wow. I didn't know the Cheeto story. That was good.
Oh, yeah.
You can't have no Cheetos. That's awesome. Miss Latice, what about you? Did you ever feel like you were going into losing yourself? I know you've been married for 50 years. You have 2 adult sons, grandchildren, the whole bit. Did you ever feel at any point like, wait a minute, I'm losing me?
Well, I think one of the things I thought about, I met John in October. We got engaged in March and we were married in August. We didn't have our first child until 5 years later. And so
Okay.
it gave us an opportunity to get to know each other. Now, you got to remember, some of you may not know this about me, but I might look fancy and all of that, but down deep inside, I'm from Egan Homes, the projects. And so I grew up knowing that, first of all, my mom and dad divorced when we were about 3 or 4 years old. And that resulted from the standpoint of an abusive marriage. And so my mom did a lot of things and said things. She was careful not to, you know, speak ugliness about my dad. But when we started to ask questions about different things, because, you know, you can be in an abusive relationship and lose yourself. And she explained to me one day that it was my dad that had been abusive. And what that did for, I believe, my sister and I, it taught us that we needed to be strong women. And so John and I have always been able to communicate openly. Now, we don't always agree, but we try very hard not to be disagreeable. But, you know, it was, I'm pretty sure that when he first married me, he probably was not used to somebody like me, because I did speak my mind. I didn't back up off of anything, but I was always respectful of him, you know, as my husband, because I wanted the marriage to work. All of the women just about in my family are divorced. And so John and I are the only couple that have been married this length of time. And I think that one of the things that I will always remember that my mom taught me, own who you are and own your truth. And when you do that, it's hard for me to compromise when I know something is not right. I grew up with that value in my marriage. Some things John did, I didn't like. Some things I did, he didn't like. But we never did things that would cause each other to lose ourselves in the relationship. I needed him and he needed me. I came into the relationship with some valuable assets, and so did he. And so we just learned to compromise and do things that were helpful to each other. Doesn't mean we didn't get into some arguments sometimes, because we did. But we just, you know, you can't argue by yourself. That's another thing I learned. So sometimes somebody just has to keep quiet and let things kind of before you go back and talk about them. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm fortunate enough, even with the children, and even in relationships, it's something in me that doesn't feel right when something is not right. And
Mm,
I just can't move forward if I don't, say something or do something about it. That's just how I'm made up.
right, right. I get it. I get it. Thank you for that. And Pastor Cross, what about you? Any time where you kind of felt yourself slipping away, was
You
on the
know,
slippery slope?
I'm just listening to their stories and they're so rich. It's so much to all of this. But when we talk about losing ourselves, I was in the process of discovering myself. So when I came into the Navy, I was 19 when I went into the Navy, and I met my husband in the Navy. And then I got out. We got married before I got out, and he stayed in. So I was still discovering who I was, but now I was labeled with a wife, right? So I'm a girl from the Bay. You're right, from the Bay. We don't play. But I'm also a girl who's married now. I'm a veteran, and I'm also a Navy spouse. And so it was all of these labels that were on me as I was coming on and just growing. And so then I didn't become a mother until 4 years later myself. So Michael and I spent a lot of time together. Our first 4 years, we were I was out, but we had transitioned to another duty station. And so it was again just a lot of transitions, a lot of transitions. So after I had Naya, it's my first baby. After I had Naya, it became now I'm a mother, and so trying to, I think, understand who I was very hard. It was kind of hard because I was moving. We constantly move. We moved 12 times. This is our 13th move, actually. So we've been in
Wow.
Georgia. This is the longest we've stayed anywhere. And what we've been here since 2011. So this is the longest we've been in the state. And I'm always like, okay, I'm ready to go now. We've been here, but it was constant transition. So it was being a mother, being a Navy spouse, um, trying to find out who I was, but it was all of these competing things that were coming toward me. And like
Mm-hmm.
Andrea said, it's like when you have a child, that's your main focus. So my focus was for a while my baby, like, and I breastfed both of mine, and we just had National Black Breastfeeding Week this week. So I
Mm-hmm.
breastfed both children. So of course they were attached to me. So it felt like, yes, I was giving my whole life to these people and to my husband. And it was like, okay, where am I? What I decided to do was start to enroll in school. And so I used to say I was a lifelong
Mm-hmm.
student, but I started at a community college. I was in community college before I went into the Navy, but then I went into the Navy and started going back. And I just took one class. And I was like, I'm going to take one class a semester. And so for those who think you can't do anything, start with one class. And it was basic
Mm-hmm.
math because math was not on point, y'all. So I had to take the basic math, all the way up to statistics, college statistics. But I started with basic math. And I would do that everywhere we went because everywhere we go, there's a new college. They had new prerequisites. So I would have to start over my prerequisites and everything. So just last year, graduating with the two masters, but y'all, 20 years later, but I kept going one class at a time to keep what I
Mm-hmm.
believe God had called me to do. So yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
been a long
Wow.
journey.
I
And we're
see.
still journeying. I'll say I'm still
That's
learning
right.
about
It
who I
never
am.
stops. It never stops because we grow into different people, as I say, as we get older. Things we used to not like, we kind of start liking, and we just go and move through life. So, what would you say? I'm going back to you, Andrea, about what would you tell a woman some ways to maintain who you are? So just say you get married and have the children or whatever it may be, life comes in different ways. So what would you say to maintain you? What would you do? Or what would you say to yourself back then when you had Kamari?
I guess I had to understand there's a difference between sacrificing and giving yourself up. I know as a mom,
Mm.
as a wife, you make sacrifices for other people, but you never lose who you are in the process. So after that episode, I had to learn, even at church, people want you to be the
Mm-hmm.
pastor's wife. So what does that look like? They want you there for every program, every
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
ministry meeting, praise team, choir. That was, I could do all that. And I was like these other ladies. I didn't have my first child until after we were married for 5 years. So after I had him, when I lost myself in that little point with him, it was like I got into this fog. But to get out of that fog, I had to realize that first my goal was to back to God. So I had to get back in my devotionals. I had to start back praying and asking God to show me what he had for me, not
Mhm.
as a wife, not as a mother. Show me what he wanted me to do. And he made me
Mhm.
realize that there were times that I would have to sacrifice. For instance, when my children grew up, they were in sports. I couldn't be at church every Sunday. I couldn't
Right.
be at Bible study every Wednesday because we need to be in the bed. I had a strict thing
Mm-hmm.
with the bedtime, 8:30. So that period of my life was sacrificed for my children. I realized it was a sacrifice, but that was not who I was. I didn't allow that to take control of me. I did it when I wanted to. If they couldn't, come to church, fine. We won't come to church together. I'm going to support the kids. That was a sacrifice I made. Sometimes it was the
Mhm.
husband that had to be sacrificed because, hey, I may not be here for Father's Day. I'll take care of you before I leave. But then, there's sometimes you have to be with the children. The children have to realize sometimes, hey, I can't be with you. I need to be with your dad. Sometimes the church
Mhm.
has to realize I can't be with the church. I have to be, somewhere else. And then there are times I need time just for me. No husband,
Right.
no kids, no church. I mean, school, everything. Because sometimes you need a moment, just a woosah moment, just
Yes.
to
Mhm.
relax.
Mhm.
Just you and God. And sometimes not even me and God. Sometimes just me. Me sitting down, curled up on the couch with Lifetime, with everybody gone. They know that's what I want for Mother's Day every year, an empty house. Because every now and then
Right.
you have to take time just for yourself. Don't ever allow yourself to go. Because I've watched so many people. I mean, you get married and you lose yourself in the children. And once the children are gone, what do you have left? So I've learned that I have to make sacrifices, yes, but I also don't lose myself in the process because there are times I want a vacation by myself. Sometimes I want to be with my girlfriends. Sometimes it's with my husband alone. Sometimes it's with groups of people. But don't ever lose yourself. And don't let people put labels on
Mhm.
you. Don't let them
Right.
decide how you should live your life. I mean,
That's
when I
right.
became a pastor, I was always, told you're supposed to sit here, you do this, this is how you dress, this is how you act, this is what you do. I'm not a public speaker. Don't try to make me a preacher. I'm not a preacher. I have not been called to do that. That's not my time. You can't. Don't allow people to put these labels on you. Just
That's
my
right.
favorite line is, "Do you? Just do you."
Mhm. That's right. That was good.
Uh,
And I know, Sister Letitia, you always talk to our women about maintaining ourselves throughout and making sure that we care for ourselves. So, what are some things that some of the advice that you've given us that I want you to give everybody else about maintaining who you are as a woman? What would you say to us in doing that?
I think the first thing that you have to realize, you have to understand who you are. And I used to tell women a long time ago, and not only who you are, but whose you are. And when you recognize those kinds of qualities that God Himself has placed in you, it enables you to walk through some of the things that I've heard Andrea and Minister Cross talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
I think that things that I want to say in your married life, it took when before you got married, you did everything you could to make that man notice you and even fall in love with you. And the saddest thing I have seen in marriages here lately, and it doesn't have to be a 1 or 2 year marriage. I mean, these are people that have been married for a long period of time. When you stop taking care of yourself, so you have to put something in yourself. Whatever it took for you to get that man, you got to maintain that. I am 70 years old and I still am able to cause my husband to wink at me. I'm telling you,
Oh
you
my.
That's
gotta
what you do.
do
Oh
what
my.
it takes to keep them. You know, men are visual. So my husband will never come home and see me looking raunchy. I'm not going to do that. I like to keep my house decent. I like to cook. I like to make John laugh. That now, my husband, most of you all will look at me and say, oh, she is too serious. But if y'all could be a fly on the wall, I'm
Not at
telling you,
all.
I love to flirt with him. I'm serious. I love to flirt with him. I just enjoy being a woman. And I think that we have everything it takes to keep our husbands happy and pleased and raise a family at the same time. I know you can do it because there are things, Andrea, that you may not even realize, but the very things that you did in nurturing your children and then taking care of your husband, those are things that you taught your boys. Those are the things that they're going to want from whoever they marry. I see that in
That's
my
right.
children. The way that I treat my husband, that's the same type of woman that my youngest son has married. Someone that will
Mm,
stand by him, someone who will support him and love him. And so we don't realize it, but we model through our behaviors
that's right.
what children need to see in order for them to lead a better life. And so those are some things that I want to say to women. Never forget who you are and what you did to get it. Don't let yourself go. I don't care if you're 80 years old. I've seen some 80-year-old women at our church and they still look good. And
Yes,
one
they
They
of them
do.
I
do.
told time
Yes, they
before
do.
even said to somebody else, you know, I've been married times. What you waiting on? You know, so we got folk in our church, you all. Beautiful women. I love them. I have a strong heart for women, whether they're single or married, because I feel like we can share so much with each other in ways, I hate to say it, that men don't necessarily do that. We can pour out our hearts. We can cry. We
Mhm.
can snot. We can do whatever it takes to talk about the things that matter to us as women.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
good.
Pastor Cross, what about you? What are some ways that you maintain you?
Oh my goodness. So I've had to, I think, fight to get back to maintaining me in some seasons of life. Because as Andrea said, sometimes labels are put on you. So even being called, right? Okay, you're called to be a minister. What does that mean? And what the labels and the restrictions that people try to put on you. But even being a Navy spouse, being a mother, what does all that look like? And what does society say? Even your friends, because you talked about not losing yourself even in your friends. And so
Mm-hmm.
I have learned how to walk with people who are able to, maybe they're ahead in life. So 5, 10 years, I have friends who are older. I have friends that are the same age as me and a little younger. So I have three sets of people that I talk to, and I know Pastor used to always talk about how we have associates, we have comrades and constituents, right? And so knowing that helped out a lot so that I don't forget who I am, but also who I'm around is it helps. And so what I was blessed with, and I think my husband, both of us, really was who we were around. So not
That's
necessarily church folk. And one thing that's blessed me everywhere we've been at a church. So been to church all over the world. But whoever you hang around, that shows a reflection of your character and what you're going to be doing in your time away from the church. Because the truth is, we spend about 3 hours at church a week. What are you doing with the rest of those 168 or 163 hours? Right? So, how does that look? How do I live out this walk in Christ the rest of those hours? So, what I've done and what I think we've done is made sure number one, no drama. So, we don't have no drama up in here. The one thing we don't do is drama, not up in here. And I've come from drama. I've seen drama, seen things go on in my family of origin that I knew I didn't want in my house. So Michael and I, we will have an intense fellowship. Yes, we will. But it will not be, we're not going to disrespect each other. I think even our military experiences help with that too. Like we are here to get it done by any means necessary. We're gonna get what we got to get done. We're committed. We're honest, and you have to be. You have to be. I always say to people that you got to have a thick skin because Michael Cross don't mince no words. He gonna tell you like a ti is. I needed to lose some weight. He was like, I mean, when you gonna stop eating? When you gonna stop eating? And I was like, you know what? It wasn't until, and I thank God for this pandemic, but it was just a whole lot. We all have been moving, right? And so I started to work out, and I was working out every day, and it has still been working out every day. But he was like, well, when you stop eating, that was helpful. I was like, well, thank you. But you know what? I know who I am. It's okay. I know who I am. And, you know, he
Right.
just says it like he needs to say it. Michael's a straight shooter. He's not going to miss no words with y'all. And I'll tell you one other thing he always say to us. He'd be like, y'all want to wear the stretch pants? You need to wear some regular pants with no spandex. That'll tell you the truth about where you are. He said,
No
you
more
always wear the
leggings.
stretch pants. So it's the truth. You know, sometimes we want to wear things that are comfortable, but we got to wear what we our true size. Walk in where you are right now. Wear what you need to wear in your true size. That'll tell you where you are instead of
Right.
expanding. So it's been helpful. Sometimes, you know, he says things that are just crazy. It just cracks me up. But I thank God we've been good friends. We're best friends. And it's been helpful that we can do this life together and get to this stage because it's been almost
Mhm.
20, 23 years. 23 years. Yeah, it's been 23 years. Yeah.
But I know, even with talking to Pastor Cross about counseling, sometimes as women, we probably, some of us don't even know who we are to even
Yeah.
lose who we are. So,
Yes.
what are some ways that you would give people, Pastor Cross, when you're talking to them in counseling about finding themselves? Because I was reading something where it talked about when you get into a relationship, and we've talked about this amongst individually with the three of you guys.
Yeah.
When you get into a relationship or a marriage, you're supposed to bring who you are to that, and not
Yes.
get caught up in who that person is, and then you want to become a part of who they are. And so
Yeah.
if they're not there, then you don't know who you are, so
Yeah.
to speak. So what do you advise to look? We're trying to get a little free counseling in here.
I
What do
see
you
you.
say
I
to
see
those?
you.
Look, you see me, you see me. Okay, so what do you say to a woman who just doesn't even know who she is? Like, where do you start? Where do you start from that to even find out
Yes.
you?
And it's so good. So I think even just our concept of what marriage is, I like to start there, especially in the church and as believers and what we believe marriage is and what the Bible says it is, right? So going back to Genesis, the Bible talks about that the man should leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, right? So there's a leaving and a cleaving, but he's leaving his family, his home of origin, and he's cleaving to his wife. Also, if we go to Ephesians 5, it says that a man should love his wife as he does his own self, and that the wife should
Mm,
respect her husband
That's
because we
right.
already automatically love. So that's not even a problem for us. So that leaving and cleaving process is for the man, but it's also for us. So, first, like I talked about, when I left my home at 18 going into the Navy, it was like I'm just leaving to go find out who I am, but I did not know who I was. I had to
Mm.
leave, physically leave. And some people don't physically get to leave like I did. And I think that's what helped me is being able to physically leave the house and not being able to go back home when things got tough because it got tough and I wanted to go home. But my parents, I remember
mhm,
one time I was on the ship and I didn't have a lot of money because you don't make a lot when you first go in. And I was like, Mama, I called my mama, I think, and I asked her for some money, and she was like, don't you live on the ship? Don't they got a galley? You better go in there and go eat. So it was like, you can't send me. We didn't have a cash app. We didn't have these phones and all that when I went in. None of
mhm,
that. You had to write letters, and then it'd take a couple weeks to get the letter from off the ship back to the person you were mailing it to. So no text message, none of that stuff was there. And I think that's a
mhm,
lot of what is going on with us even now is we're looking to the internet, we're looking to everything besides looking in within and looking to God as our source. First
Mm-hmm.
thing we need to do is work on what is God calling me to do individually. What is the calling that He's given me individually? And then what is He calling us corporately to do as a couple, if you're going to be a couple, or if that's even a thing. But individually, what does God call you to do first?
Mm-hmm.
What do you like? What don't you like? What are some things that happen in your family of origin that you need to recover from? Because there could have been some traumas that have happened. There could have been some wrong theology that has been presented and handed down to you. Could have been wrong beliefs about men. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the generational bondage or strongholds that we often hear about. You can change that. So investigating yourself first, knowing who you are, exploring who you are, what you like,
Mm-hmm.
what you don't like, what turns you on, what turns you off. Everything is a
Right.
good thing to know about you first. And then don't expect that person to be perfect that you're going to be in a covenant with. You
Mm-hmm.
ain't perfect. I'm not
That's
perfect. None of us meets God's holy standard
Mhm.
according to Him. None of us.
That's
Our
right.
righteousness is but
That's
filthy
right.
rags. And let me say this last thing. Just because you met him in church doesn't mean the church is in him. I'm just gonna put that out there. Okay? We
That's
we
it.
really want to make, because it's a religious box that we want to check, and that we really have to
Mm-hmm.
deal with that. Like, and this right now is showing us, where we worship, we can worship right here. Worship should be within inside of us already, right? We are the church. We're the ecclesia. We're the called out. So, what does that look like for you? What does that look like for your spouse? But just because y'all can shout together and y'all got a sweet shout, don't mean your life. That's supposed to be your marriage partner. Y'all just dancing partners on Sunday. So, okay, you didn't ask me about all that. I just want to put that out there because we
But
think
she had to get it
just
out.
because
You
they
had
can
to
do
get it
these,
out.
yeah, no, but what are you internally? What's going on? What's going on? So, individual
Mhm.
counseling as well, but premarital is I recommend it to everybody, and then after we need to do a checkup even after. So, I've
absolutely.
had
Mhm.
couples who see me after. We've been married a couple years, and they're like, I don't know if I like, I don't know. I don't know if I heard God. No, you heard God. No, this is a part of you learning how to not be selfish, and that person also learning how to not to be selfish, right?
Right.
Because that's what this is
Mhm.
about. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, thank you.
Good.
And I was
So
gonna say with Andrea and with Miss Latiz, you guys are married to important men. And how did
yeah.
you maintain just knowing you outside of E. Dewey Smith, Andrea? I know he's an entity within himself, but you are an entity within yourself. So how did you start that when you all got married? Did you find yourself more as you became into this his wife, or what was that? Did you set boundaries from the beginning? How did that
You hit the nail on the head. Set boundaries from the beginning. Um,
Absolutely.
because I knew who I was. I knew my dad died when I was 9 years old. So my mom, didn't remarry. She raised us. We didn't see, a lot of stuff that, other people are seeing. We didn't allow the other people to define who we were. So I knew who
go?
I was going in. And there were certain things that I won't tolerate. There's certain things you can't say to me. There's certain things that I respect about myself. So surely if I respect it about myself, then you're going to have to respect me.
Mm.
And
Absolutely.
I don't allow myself to do things that are uncomfortable to me. I did that as a
Mhm.
teenager. I am a woman now, so I'm not going to
Come
be
on.
put in uncomfortable situations. So before we got married, our thing was, what are your what some of the things that I won't tolerate. And one of the things
Mhm.
that I won't tolerate is you belittling me. You will not call me out of my name, because that's not how I was raised. So my main
Mhm.
thing is you have to respect me. Another thing we went over was what I don't do. I'm not going to be cooking. I'm not the best cook. So I didn't try to fake cooking just to try to get him. We ate out when we were dating. So you don't think, you know, I'm going to start cooking when we get married. So
That's right.
don't go into your relationship doing things that you cannot do the whole marriage. So I just knew, and I had my own beliefs. I knew who I was before we got married. And because I went through this point, even when I was younger, you know, my sister was a cheerleader. She was like, "Oh, you need to try out for cheerleading." I'm a tomboy. I don't want to cheer. I'm uncomfortable like that. Do it anyway. Okay, I went out for cheerleading. I made it. Then they made me captain. I was like, no. So I did it for 1 year, but that wasn't me. I was uncomfortable. So what did I do? I stopped. When something makes you uncomfortable, that's not what you're supposed to be doing if it's constantly making you uncomfortable. Same thing with
Mm-hmm.
dating and in relationships. I'm not going to do anything to make a man feel good that makes me uncomfortable. Why? Because
Right.
I'm not going to start anything I cannot finish. So,
That's
ladies,
right.
if a man has you doing something that's uncomfortable to you, he's not, and he knows it's uncomfortable, he's not the one for you. If you're doing things that are uncomfortable to you to try to please somebody else, that's not of God. You have to be, your morals, you know what you've been called to be. You just have to walk in that. And I didn't lose myself with my husband because, well, first of all, I didn't want to marry a preacher. So that's a whole nother show. But anyway, once I got married, we had a discussion. I don't, I don't like to dress up. I hate wearing heels. I hated wearing, but that was that certain look when I came up. Pastor's wife, she's supposed to wear a hat. I'm not wearing a hat. You're supposed to wear,
Mm-hmm.
dresses every Sunday. They want them like halfway your leg. That's my asset. It's my legs. I want to show my legs. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was an adjustment for them, not for me, because I knew who I was, and I cannot be put. I won't allow myself to be put in a box. When we got married, oh, the pastor's wife, we want you to sit right here. That's not where I want to sit. After I had kids, you don't want me and my child sitting on the, second row because I pop my children, I beat mine. So we may have to sit in the balcony so you won't see us walking out. So that was just me. I just learned you have to learn how to be good with you and don't let anybody else put labels on you, regardless of whether I could have been married to a good choir member. It doesn't have to be, this amazing personality. It could be anybody. You just cannot lose yourself trying to be someone else. And a lot of women you think it's glamorous, you're married to a pastor or whatever. It's a price to pay for being in the limelight. It's a
That's
price to
true.
pay. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to pay that price. So I figured, if you keep all the light on him, I'm good in the shade. I don't get sunburned when I'm in the shade. So I love
That's,
the shade. And you just have to know who you are and be comfortable in that and don't let anybody compromise your values.
amen. All
I
right.
agree with,
And go ahead, Miss Latia.
yeah, I agree with what Andrea just said, because how you start off in a relationship, especially if you're heading towards marriage, you can bring a lot of that into that marriage with you. And one of the first things I asked John 2 questions when I first met him, and that probably had a lot to do with my background. There are certain things that she said that you just don't tolerate. Number one, a man speaking to you any kind of way, disrespecting you, one who doesn't honor who you are as a woman. So when I met John Robert Reynolds, one of the questions I asked him was, number one, do you fight women? If my husband had said to me, if one hits me, I might hit him back, that relationship would have been dissolved. The second
Amen.
question I asked him was, do you have a job, a J-O-B? I worked. And if he had said, well, I'm kind of looking, or I can't, the man needs to work. He will tell you this day. And then the third thing I did, I wanted to find out, okay, so you've answered the questions correctly. I want to meet your family one day. When I met his father, that told the story. I knew at that point what I was getting into. And of course, when my grandparents met his family and my mom met his family, that solidified to me what type of person he was. And the thing that I want to say is that once you set boundaries, you know what your non-negotiables are. You make sure that the person you're entering into that relationship knows what they are. You know, there are a lot of things as women that you don't have to go to school. You just know in your heart there's certain things that don't make you feel good. And so you have to make those things known to a man. I was blessed to not have a husband who liked to hang out on the corner with the men. You got a lot of black men who like that. I personally didn't like it because that's a lot of what my daddy did. And so that was one of the things that really made me know that I was getting a wonderful human being to share my life with. And I want to say this, I have not regretted not one single day. When you can communicate with a person, when you can share and laugh with a person, when you can speak truth, be yourself and not try to be somebody else, and that person does things to help you grow, and you do the same for them, that's a pretty strong marriage and relationship. Because as Minister Cross said, nobody's perfect. So when I mess up, we talk about it, we forgive, we move on. When he messes up, same thing. And it just keeps the marriage flowing, especially when you can communicate. That right there, when a woman starts closing down and not being able to speak, that means that she's pulling all that stuff on the inside of her. And that makes for an unhappy, whether you're married or single. So that's what I kind of wanted to say.
All right. Well, y'all, we're out of time. I know that was good. Thank y'all so much for being on the Pink Table Talk. We are past our time, but I appreciate you guys for coming on and giving all that wisdom and shedding so much light for me and for our ladies. I'm sure we enjoyed it. So today we had Pastor Sharice Cross, Miss Letice Reynolds, and Andrea Smith. Thank you all so much for being on here. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Pink Table Talk. We can't wait to see you next time. You all have a great one. Love y'all.
Bye.